if you were to look back 3 to 5 years from now and say that this coaching conversation with me changed everything for you about your prep, this was the moment, what would need to happen for you?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think if I knew that, then I would be doing good already.
What does good look like to you?
Good would be getting at least a 166.
And where are you right now?
147.
Okay. And what do you think is the biggest thing holding you back right now?
Well, logical reasoning and logic games. I'm not getting perfect on logic games yet, and I'm finding it hard to make the inferences for and do the games. And then for some reason, I keep trying with logical reasoning, but I'm still getting the answers wrong. So I have really bad problems with strengthening questions, all inferencing questions in all 3 sections. And then as well, what was the other one? I think some flaw questions I was having a hard time too. So I guess it's really focusing on inferences and we're getting better at my making my predictions for the questions and logical reasoning. Mm-hmm. So I find that really hard.
Yeah, predictions are enormous. And if you can make predictions and see where the argument's going, then the correct answer will jump out at you.
Yeah.
And when it does, of course, it's incredible. And so it doesn't always happen, but if it's not happening very much at all, that suggests to me that you might need to become more familiar with the different methods of reasoning that are used on the LSAT.
Okay.
How many exams would you say you've worked through up to this point?
Over maybe 15.
Okay. And when you say you've worked through them, what kind of engagement have you had with them? Have you taken them and scored yourself? Have you reviewed? What does that look like?
A bit of both. Some of them I took on the Khan Academy website through LSAT that they suggest, and they don't let you review them on there. So those ones I didn't get to review, but then all the other ones that I did do some review to figure out which ones I got wrong, but I didn't do any review to figure out why I got them wrong because I don't totally understand how to figure that out.
Yeah. So if you've reviewed them but not looked at why you get them wrong, to me, that's not really reviewing. That's scoring.
Okay.
You check the answer key and you see, okay, I got this wrong, I got this right. You know your score.
Yeah.
But there's not really any analysis going on there.
Right.
And to me, analysis is the biggest benefit you can get out of working through an LSAT problem. Because the benefit of doing exams is not simply to measure yourself. Because this is not the actual official LSAT. There's no value to that score other than as a benchmark of where you currently stand. But if you're really looking to improve, that means you've got to review in depth to figure out exactly why you made a particular mistake so that you can avoid making that same mistake the next time around. And so to me, Khan, because they don't let you really review properly and they give you the answer explanations bite-sized right in there, to me, they're actually preventing proper review because proper review is you struggling with the problem again, untimed, to figure out your mistakes.
Okay.
And that takes time. So what do you think you could do differently about your review process?
Well, on the ones that the other ones that I took, I did do a kind of in the back of the book, they had an explanation. So I was reading through those. So I did do that. But I guess, yeah, going back through the questions and, I don't know, trying again. I guess that's kind of where I have a problem is how could I figure out what I did wrong on the question? I know that, I picked the wrong choice. That's obvious, but, I'm not sure what makes the right answer right.
Yeah, it's something to figure out and it's not easy. And in fact, when you attempt a problem, you could mark your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
and see how confident were you on your first pass through or first attempt under timed conditions. And then for everything where your confidence was a 6 or lower, you could reattempt those problems under untimed conditions to see if your issue with the question is the time constraint or the difficulty of the question itself.
I think it's the difficulty of the question itself, because when I do the questions not timed, I'm still having a hard time figuring out the right answer.
And that makes sense to me given where you're currently at. I think that for anyone who's below a 155, there's probably still foundational work for you to do. And so since you're in the courses, I would suggest you work through those foundational lessons before doing too many additional timed practice tests, because otherwise you're still testing yourself on material that you have not yet learned. So of course, the results aren't going to be outstanding. Once you've done the foundational work, then you'll get more value out of doing the timed exams.
Okay.
Now, once the issue is not as much the difficulty as it is the timing or a combination of the two, then your review could involve figuring out, was your misunderstanding in, let's say, for example, logical reasoning, was it in the stimulus with its method of reasoning? Was it in the question stem? Or was it in the answer choices?
I think that, because like I said, I've done actually like a lot of questions, because I have a bunch of books on them and like a bunch of practice books. But I'm okay with the question stem. I think it's the stimulus and the answer choices that get me really confused, because I'm not making that proper prediction from the stimulus to get to the right answer choice.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case as well. And if the mistake or misunderstanding is in the method of reasoning, a couple of things. You want to make sure you're really good at conditional language and at evidence and conclusion indicator words.
Right.
Those are foundational related things. And my course videos go through those in depth, and I'm sure your books go through them in depth as well. They're fairly basic things that are like LSAT 101, which you'll pick up pretty quickly. But then when it comes to the question of predictions, to me, that's more of a deeper pattern recognition sort of thing that comes with time. Because on the LSAT test day, under the severe time constraints, it would not, first of all, the time constraint's not reasonable to start with. They're not expecting most people to finish. It's not reasonable to ask that of people. And so the way that you finish in the time allotted is by cheating, in that you've seen several dozen exams previously, so you already know the types of methods of reasoning they're going to use.
Right.
This is not about aptitude. It's only simply about familiarity, nothing more. And so if you've done 30 exams or 50 exams, you've seen pretty much every method of reasoning they're likely to bring up, even the ones that only show up every 10 to 15 exams, which is pretty infrequent. But if you've seen those, and if you've seen them multiple times, then you're in a much better position to even subconsciously relate a new question back to what you've seen previously.
Right. Okay.
That's part of the reason that people like myself can do really well on a new exam, because we're not thinking through that method of reasoning for the first time. If we had to, we'd have to slow down. But if I've seen it 5 or 10 times or more, or 5 or 10 examples of that multiple times, then I already can immediately relate it back to something I've previously seen.
Okay.
So that's part of the issue, I think. If you've done 15 exams so far, that's a good start. But imagine how much better you would be if you had done 30 exams or 50 exams. How would that familiarity help you? And luckily, there's 87 numbered exams and even more that are unnumbered. And so you don't have to do all of them. But if you've done the most recent 30 or so, you'll be in a much better position come test day.
Right. Okay. So you were saying too that I shouldn't, like, I'm registered and I've paid to take the September LSAT, but you're saying that I should withdraw and cancel and go for November instead. I was just curious what your thoughts on that were, because in Canada it's a little bit different with your LSAT scores. They just take your highest score no matter what.
Sure. And that's actually the same in the US as well now. There's some outdated information online about that, but virtually every law school in the US also only takes your highest score. They do not average multiple scores. Some schools in the US will say that they consider multiple, but they still do in fact take the highest. Now, for your situation specifically, with September versus November, I would suggest withdrawing from September because I don't think you're going to get the score you want in the next month or so. You're looking for a big score increase. There's still foundational work to do. And there's no reason to take it simply to see how you'll do.
Okay. So I'm just curious, would I like lose all my money then kind of thing, or like by canceling or?
Yeah. So unfortunately with LSAC, they are a big bureaucracy. They do have their rules in place. And so if the postponement, AKA test date change deadline has passed, then you do lose your money for that test registration, which is about $200 or so. And so it is what it is. Not a huge deal to drop in the bucket compared to law school tuition, if that makes it feel any better. But alternatively, if you really want the dry run with the digital format, you could take it. But I don't typically recommend taking it if you don't think you'll be ready, because then let's say something goes wrong in November, you've got to take it again in January. Then you're having 3 takes on your record now when you could have had only 2.
Right.
So just things to be thinking about. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably just withdraw and forego the money, but it's your call in the end.
Okay.
Now you've got about 3 months till November though, which is enough time to make pretty much anything happen, including taking time to slow down and fully build your foundation in every aspect of the exam.
Yeah.
Do you have questions about your study plan or program or what to be doing over these next few months?
I don't think so. Well, I guess maybe I do. Sorry. I'm already started following your study plan that you sent me. So I'm already on day 2 of that, but what else could I be using as material that I could go through? Because that helps me a lot, that I can get rid of some of the books that I have here, because I've got about 8 or 9 books.
Yeah, I'm sure I know what you mean. I would suggest focusing on the study plan that I sent you first and foremost. That is your roadmap for what to be doing every single day over the course of your prep. And it shows you how to use the various articles on my website along with the course video lessons. And I honestly think those, combined of course with the actual official LSAT prep tests, will be more than enough for you.
Okay.
So if you're exhausting those and you're way ahead of schedule, then let me know. And I can suggest some other things for you as well, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed with all the various things you have to juggle.
Okay. That's good to know. I'll return some of these library books then.
Cool. And then the other thing, of course, is also come to my online classes as well for additional guidance, to ask your questions live, get them answered. And that's another way to interact with me and get some additional prep at the same time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's great.
Larissa, I'm really glad that we connected today. I'm glad I got to know you a bit better and what you're dealing with. I think that a 3-month timeline is really good for you.
Yeah.
Stick with the plan and you'll get there in the end.
Okay. Thank you.